So good news. It's like we're drinking less as a nation.
Well, it would be good news. I think we need to be a little bit careful about how we interpret the stats. After all, people aren't always honest about the amount of drinking that they indulge in.
That's just what I was going to ask you, because as a GP, you sit there with your patients and you say, well, how much do you normally drink? I mean, do people ever tell the truth? What do you think?
Well, if they're sensible, they do, because then we can advise them appropriately. But often people don't tell the truth. They underestimate how much they drink themselves, and they often don't tell their doctor what they think the doctor wants to hear. So they tell fibs. Yes, often we can. We can't always tell, because people can drink functionally, they can functionally perform quite well in their normal working lives, but are drinking far too much. But there's no doubt that, it's important to keep tabs on the nation's drinking habits, because there are about 40 medical conditions that have been identified that are related to alcohol consumption, including cancer, liver cirrhosis, heart disease and strokes. 8% of all admissions to hospital are caused by alcohol-related problems. And 5.2% of all deaths in England and Wales are due to excess alcohol consumption. This is a major problem that we have to get tabs on.
I think it's £3.5 billion a year.
Yeah.
We've been out and about in the streets talking to people about how much they're drinking. This is what they had to say.
Right.
Obviously, as I've got older, it's like, well, the thrill has worn off, so I'm not drinking as much.
All I know is that I drink less.
I'd definitely say I probably drink more this time of year.
I do think the cost of alcohol has definitely been a big factor in making me drink less.
If you go to the pub after 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, everybody's already quite drunk.
I don't drink to get drunk. I have a few glasses of wine or a beer with friends.
You get to a certain age and you go, right, I can't keep on doing this. I can't go out every night of the week. I feel terrible the next day, so you go, right, I'll just do it at the weekend. It's a bit of moderation.
I have to say, lots of our viewers have been in touch as well. Marcus O'Donnell says, I've stopped drinking altogether. It's the best thing I've ever done. Eddie Britton Peggy says, just have a drink on the weekend. You enjoy it much more as it becomes very boring every day. So do you think the message is getting through?
I think people are becoming more aware of the dangers of alcohol. Certainly, we're seeing more binge drinking. So people might be drinking less on a regular basis, but when they're drinking more
and amongst
at one sitting. And especially amongst women over 25 as well. So they are a category that we need to worry about. And certainly young drinkers are still drinking more than the older groups, but we're seeing more drinking of a heavy nature in middle-aged and older people too.
Why is that?
I think there are many reasons. I think for younger people, advertising still has a huge appeal, and hundreds of millions of pounds are spent on advertising alcohol to make it more attractive to younger people. Also, alcohol, although we heard in that report that some people find it expensive, it's 65% more affordable than it was in 1980 in comparison. So cost is a factor too. It is relatively cheap. Water is more costly in some supermarkets than alcohol can be.
That's shocking, isn't it? And still the majority of the population are saying they have a drink pretty much once a week. What number would you be happy with? Where should it be?
Well, I think the maximum recommended limits do have a purpose. If men drink no more than sort of 21 to 28 units a week and women no more than 14 to 21 units a week, they're not going to get into trouble. Well, it's people need to know what a unit is, but it's a small pub measure glass of wine, or a average strength half pint of beer is 1 unit.
The problem is we're talking about this in probably the booziest or coming up to the booziest week of the year, right? So if we're going to have a good time over Christmas, what should we do about how much we should and shouldn't drink?
Well, I wouldn't want to be a killjoy and say people should not let their hair down. Everybody should have a good time, but you don't need to get absolutely inebriated to have a good time. And I think if you're going to drink, have something to line your stomach. Always have a meal beforehand. Dilute your drinks either by diluting the drink itself, going for a spritzer rather than a full-fat wine, if you like, and then perhaps having a soft drink in between each alcoholic drink, so that you're increasing the amount of fluid that you're having other than alcohol.